Hello, I'm Sherry Begow, and this is my final presentation for Human Resource Management, and I will be covering company incentive plans. What are incentive plans? Well, they're also known as variable pay programs because they're not fixed pay like someone's salary or hourly wage, and they vary based on some type of performance plan. They can consist of bonuses, incentives, and recognition to employees. Incentive plans reward employees for continued contributions to the organization, so both the organization and the employee come out as winners. There are three types of incentive plans: individual plans, group plans, and enterprise. Why have incentive plans? Well, there are lots of benefits around them. One, they align employee efforts with organizational goals and objectives. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a win-win situation because both the employee and the employer can come out as winners, as long as everybody works hard to meet those objectives. It's flexible versus fixed pay. Again, it's considered variable, so that an employee can actually earn more pay on top of what they have if they achieve specific goals and objectives. It is a pay for performance based on achieving the goals and objectives. So it does encourage employees to work even harder because then they'll be compensated for that extra effort. It fosters teamwork and cohesiveness, especially if there are group incentive plans. So it really does encourage them to work harder together to achieve that goal. It distributes success, so everybody feels like winners when they obtain their goal and when they're compensated for it. It increases equity and justice at the company, so employees become more accountable for their work and take more ownership in the work that's assigned to them so they can meet those goals. And incentive plans are known to attract and retain top performers. So not only does it help retain those top performers, it helps them continue to be top performers. And it can also help with people who aren't top performers, who are getting by. If they're seeing the benefits that others are getting, meeting their incentive plans, then that can encourage them to work just as hard as well. How does a company implement a successful incentive plan? They should identify key organizational metrics that encourage employee behavior. This way, based on what organizational objectives there are, then you can go ahead and then make specific targets within the incentive plan. And so they need to be in line with what the company goals and objectives are. They also need to be measurable. Specific goals that's very clear that an employee can understand. Involve the employees. The incentive program should seem fair to employees. They need to be seen as attainable goals, not something that's impossible to achieve or it can affect their morale. Find the right incentive payout. Payout formulas should be simple for employees to understand. This way they can monitor, based on my performance, I'll be paid out this much, or I understand how my performance will be measured to determine what my payout will be. Establish a clear link between performance and payout. Employees need to understand this is a reward. It's not an entitlement. It is based on the extra effort that they put in and what they achieve in order to receive the pay. And have continuous communications to the employees. If there are going to be any changes or improvements to the plan, they need to understand that. They also need to have a way to ask questions in case they don't understand something, or They need clarification on their objectives or on the payout plan. But the most important thing to help a company have a successful incentive plan is that employees must believe in it. In order for them to believe in it, they need to understand it. A company needs to properly promote the incentive plan. There needs to be excitement put into the employees so that they'll work hard to achieve what those goals are set out for. So every incentive plan that a company has, as mentioned earlier, should have clear objectives for the employees, and the objectives and their performance need to be measurable in order to be able to calculate, what they've achieved and how they'll be paid out. And there are certain do's and don'ts around measuring one's performance, and there's actually examples of do's for all the incentive type plans. So you have individual, group, and enterprise. Now, if you're measuring individual performance, you want to make sure that it's quantitative and you're measuring simple work, so it's clear, so an employee can understand what they're going to be measured on. And do measure work, independent of others' contribution. So if Lily affected her work was delayed and affected Elizabeth's output, then you shouldn't, measure that piece of it. If it's group, then do measure the group interdependent work, because, they'll be measured as a team. And if it's enterprise, then be sure to measure, the organization's interdependent work, which could probably involve like different departments and how they affect one another, and results that employees can control. If there was some type of issue because of something done above at the executive level, that shouldn't impact an employee's performance payout. And then across the board, for all three plans, you should be measuring the relationship between work and performance, because the incentive plans are pay for performance payouts. Some examples around what not to measure, for individual plans, you shouldn't measure based on preferences. So, don't measure, based on who you like and dislike. Don't consider, personalities, political preferences, and don't measure without considering contributions of peers. Now, within a group plans, don't measure without considering contributions of other teams. What another team, how another team may have impacted the team that you're measuring. And don't measure unless there's a mechanism for teams to discipline slackers. If there is a team incentive plan and someone's not doing their part, there needs to be some type of performance management around that. And then in enterprise, don't measure unless employees can see how their work actually contributes to the enterprise. Again, when you have an incentive plan, employees need to understand how their performance will be measured and calculated. They need to understand that formula for payout. And don't measure without considering the effects of the environment. Is there an economic downturn right now? Is there a change going on in the board? The company's being sold? That type of scenarios could impact overall performance calculations and could affect the employee's payout. So I think this is the fun part, is learning about the different incentive plans. And so the first type are individual incentive plans, and there's a variety of them. One example is a piecework incentive plan, and there's actually two types. You have your straight piecework, and so basically it's let's say you have people who make furniture, and they will be paid a certain amount for each piece of furniture they make. So for every chair you make, I will give you $10. So obviously the more chairs they make, the more money they're going to make. Then there's also differential piece rate. And that's typically, somebody has a baseline of chairs that they need to make. And then for every chair on top of that baseline, they'll earn extra money. So if somebody needs to make 30 chairs a day and receive $100, and then for every additional chair they make over 30, they'll earn another $100. And that'll push them to, produce more in a day. Then you have your standard hour plan. So this is, let's say, and it works well with mechanics and probably construction efforts, but if someone says, all right, it'll take me 5 hours to, fix this car, but my rate to you is going to be $500. And if you can finish it in 3 hours, I'm still going to give you $500. So that's a huge incentive for somebody to finish their work a lot quicker. But, quality still needs to be looked at as well. And then there are bonuses, which are very popular. So that's basically earning additional money on top of your current salary or hourly pay. So let's say an employee has certain goals and objectives they meet, they can earn a 10% bonus on top of their salary. There's also spot bonuses. So, if a manager feels that their employee did a great job on that project, hey, I'm going to give you a $1,000 bonus on the spot. Then there's merit pay. So these are basically, your raises. A lot of common ones are annual raises. But I'm starting to see this less and less in companies, especially if they're, not financially capable of doing it. So it does, it offers, there's pros and cons around merit pay. If an employee has specific goals and objectives that they need to meet and they really want to get that pay increase, then yeah, it'll help them take more accountability and work harder. But once you get that, let's say you give the employee the merit pay, and now that actually affects their fixed pay, right? It's no longer flexible. Now they're going to earn that higher pay rate for the next year or whatever it may be. But what happens if the performance comes down, right? So they did great to earn that pay increase, and then 3 months after they get the increase, there's issues going on, and so you're paying them at that higher rate still, but yet their performance didn't stay on top and didn't continue to grow. Then there's awards and recognition. So a lot of companies have an employee recognition program. Like a monthly employee or best customer service rating. And so these employees are recognized, and a lot of times there are cash rewards for that. And this could be done, recognize them in group settings or, amongst your team or individually. And then there's sales incentive plans, for your sales staff. And there's 3 kinds that can be used. One is a straight salary plan. So, you can pay your salesperson, a certain salary, and, which includes everything they have to do. They don't have to worry about not making a consistent pay on a regular basis because times are tough. Then you have your straight commission plan. And so this is for people who get paid for, specifically around their sales volume. So the more they sell and make money for the company, the more they're going to make as well. The most common one that I've seen are the combined straight and salary and commission plan. So a salesperson can earn, let's say, $50,000, but then for every sale they make, they'll earn 25% commission off of each sale. So they not only have a base pay, but then they also make additional income for the sales volume. So next, there are group incentive plans, and the first one, or one that can be developed, is team compensation. So basically, a whole team, the team members will be measured together to achieve a specific goal and objective. When developing a team compensation incentive plan, there are three things that need to be considered or done. First, you need to set the performance measures. What exactly is this team going to be measured on? And it should be tied somehow to company objectives. So let's say that company is trying to reduce recruiting costs. And so, the team is going to use different measures when they're recruiting new personnel. Then, what's the size of the incentive bonus? That needs to be determined. So let's say that team is able to save $10,000 in recruiting costs for a specific time period. They need to know, what that bonus is going to be. So the team will be paid, will earn a 10% bonus on top of the savings that they were able to make. And then third, a payout formula is established and it's communicated to employees. So every single team member needs to understand how they will be paid out. Yes, there's a 10% bonus for, cost savings around recruiting, but, what does each person on that team earn? Is it split out equally across everyone? Is there a lead who will earn a little more than the rest of the team? Is there a part-time person there who will only receive a percentage? So each team member needs to understand what their formula is and how they'll be paid out. The next type of group incentive plan is gain sharing, and this gain sharing plans involve both employees and the organization to have a common goal, and then based on meeting those objectives, then there's a formula put into place to determine how employees will be paid out. A lot of it is, a company wants to save costs around a certain objective, and the employee, based on the overall success of that, if there's a certain amount of savings involved, and then employees can be paid out based on those savings. But how the performance is measured is based on inputs and outputs of that objective. So, for example, some examples of outputs are, items that are produced, total standard costs, the number of customer orders. Inputs are basically the resources it takes to develop those outputs. So you need to consider the cost of employees, materials, and inventory, goods or services that are purchased to help produce what your outputs are going to be. And so two common goals around gain sharing is you have more output with less input, because obviously that means the company will make more money, or you have equal production output, but it took less input to get that output. Again, the company will save more money. So based on the total savings, between the input and output, then employees, there'll be a formula so that employees will earn some type of bonus around that. There are two examples of gain sharing incentive plans, and the first one is called the Scanlon plan. And the Scanlon plan involves both employees and management committees to determine what the cost reduction improvements are going to be. And with the Scanlon plan, employees are really encouraged to offer their own ideas and suggestions on how to improve productivity and how they'll be rewarded for their efforts. Another example of a gain sharing incentive plan is ImproShare, and this is based on the overall productivity of the work team, the output. So basically ImproShare bonuses, it depends on how much productivity did the team improve overall. It's not just based on one employee's productivity, but the whole team, if they were able to produce more output, then they'll be paid out based on that total output. Now we move into enterprise incentive plans, and I like this type of incentive plan because it involves everyone in the organization who will participate in the compensation payout. So it really feels, it's important that an incentive plan is seen as to be fair by employees. So, everybody's rooting for the company to be successful, because the more successful the company is, then everybody's going to share in that wealth and that success. So yeah, it's based on the organization's success over a specific time period, and that could usually be within a year. So if the company is doing well, then there's an enterprise incentive plan, then the employees can look forward to being rewarded as well. And it creates a culture of ownership. It really encourages teams to work hard together, because everybody wants to see the company thrive and do well. There are 3 types of enterprise incentive plans. The first is profit sharing plans. So if the company has a certain amount of profit, then they will share a certain amount to their employees across the board. And there are special formulas around profit sharing as well. So maybe depending on someone's grade level, they'll earn a certain percent, and then somebody at a higher level may earn a higher level of percent. Then there are stock options. So a company can actually have a window in time where they offer their employees the opportunity to purchase company stock at a fixed rate, and it's usually at a discounted rate, and that only happens during a certain amount of time. And this can help employees feel like they have some ownership in the company, and they feel more tied to the company, and it's going to make them motivate them more to work harder and achieve their own goals. And then there's the employee stock ownership plan, which are also called ESOP. So instead of employees purchasing stock, the company actually uses their own stock with their own funds to hold stock in, let's say, an employee's account that they'll earn over time. And then if an employee does leave, then they're able to take that stock option with them as well. Company incentive plans are a real crucial thing to have, especially if you really want to push your workforce to participate in the overall company success and feel like that they come out ahead as well. It really helps with employee morale, job satisfaction, and bottom line, retaining your top performers. And if a company is able to implement incentive plans successfully, then everybody comes out as winners.